Welcome to 15K plus random movie reviews, where we take random movies from Metacritic's 15K plus movies to randomly watch whether we like it or not. Hello and welcome to episode 10 of 15K plus random movie reviews. This is Colin.
This is Niall.
And this is random movie number 487 out of 1,000. If you remember, in the last episode, we would give ourselves a break every 10 episodes and pick a random movie from the top 1,000 movies. So this is an Indian documentary / sort of art project movie. It's called A Night of Knowing Nothing, which is very hard to say and hard to remember as well. It's got a Metascore of 87 and a user score of 7.6. It's got a runtime of 97 minutes. And everybody that's in the background of this movie, they pretty much have of this movie in their back catalogue. The director is Payal Kapadia, and the writers are him and Himansha Prajapati, and the narrator is Bhimasuta Das, who narrates Elle, who Niall will describe who she is in a few seconds. So again, we're ending off our top 10 with our first 10 with a documentary. We started with a documentary. So if you remember, we don't do plot, obviously. We do topic, and then we focus on people. And then the two last ones are sound, brackets track, and production, just like a non-fiction movie. So, Niall, in general, what is this movie about?
Yeah, so it kicks off, the two writers come up with this sort of thematic glue to stick several different scenes together, spread over a few different years, where they decided that the idea is somebody finds a box in a room in the FTII, or the Film and Television Institute of India, and inside this box is a bunch of lost film reels and a diary written by that girl you already mentioned, Elle. And it on a very high level, it glues these difficult and sometimes violent scenes together over a few years around several colleges in India and outside of colleges too. First scene kicks off. It's Elle. She's talking to her estranged lover. She misses him. She's going to a party, but she kind of doesn't really want to. In the background, it shows a bunch of students dancing. There's a movie playing, and this scene is kind of weird, a bit dreamlike. I think obviously intentionally dreamlike. Then she talks about she had a meeting with the dean of the college, and she asks, I'm not really sure, where's the boyfriend? Where is he? And she doesn't explain to the dean, but she then goes on to explain to the listener or the viewer that, you can't be here because your family won't let you come here because you mentioned to them that you wanted to marry me, and I'm a lower caste, so you're not allowed to go back to that college anymore, you naughty boy.
And that sort of introduces the sort of main undercurrents of the troubles that are in this documentary. Yeah. I think a lot of the narration is from actual love letters, I think, just to pinpoint that specific form of communication.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. She's talking to him directly. Now, it's supposed to be her diary, so the letters aren't actually sent. And she doesn't exist as well, so there is that. It is just a widget to try and tie some story into what is a very serious subject. Yeah,
and so she's at college, she's at university, whatever, and FTII, which and the movie ends with an FTII speech, which is very strange because the FTII is where all these some unrest begins to appear because the college chairman has been appointed and they all feel that he's a government mandated appointment.
Yeah. So this chap was a Bollywood actor, quite a famous Bollywood actor, but his views are quite differing from their left-centric ideology in that college. So this causes them problems, and
they have a big strike.
Yeah, the big story. Well, part of their problems with this is he changes everything about the college, and he's changing what they're allowed to do, and they obviously don't like this very much. Anyway, as the that scene ends with them all dancing and all that stuff, she starts talking about the administration, which is the chap you just mentioned, cracking down on the students.
Mm-hmm.
And she thinks it's direct retaliation to the 2015 student strikes, which lasted apparently for 139 days. And the administration and the government aren't exactly about to forgive them for past discretion. So things get difficult for people from the get-go in this. And this is good because, to be honest, the scenes up to now where she's talking about her lover or talking to her lover, I find it hard to be involved with it or get stuck in. But
it was a tough intro.
It was a tough intro, but at least now we're starting to get some of the meat of what this is about, which is good.
Yeah, the vibe is very much like an art student, art college student production. It's very abstract. It's very dark, very grainy. It's very hard to see.
Silent at times. There's nobody talking. There's no music at times. It's just stuff happening. There's a scene in the background. There's a tree. There's a sink. Somebody's washing their dishes. That's interesting, but no.
Yeah, at one point I was trying to make sense. Okay, right, so they're showing scenes of normal Indian life, but it really wasn't riveting. It wasn't pivotal to telling the story. And so that first 35, 40 minutes, it's very much introducing Elle as the narrator and the sort of background of the student's narrative, but very, very visually not very engaging.
I think the problem is that they've created this character, Elle, and they're trying to humanize this character as somebody who's lived through these events, and they're trying to, have some compassion with the viewer and Elle, but it doesn't do that because she's never fleshed out at all, and having scenes in the background of other people doing other things adds nothing to the character of Elle. So I understand what they're trying to do. It fails. But anyway, sorry, I'll continue with the plot and stop giving out.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And we can chunkify things as well. Like I think the first 39 minutes or so, I don't think anything really happens of note. To be honest with you,
they mention Modi. They mention something about the abandonment of the concept of a secular state in India in favor of like a Hindu/Christian leaning state.
Which is where it gets interesting because it provides context. And she mentions Trump victory.
She does, yes, and that's only like these mentions of Modi or Trump are like fleeting in the first 40 minutes. So there's a taste of what the real problem is, but it doesn't get into it.
Yeah, it's ramping up though because in the same statement of mentioning Modi and Trump, she also goes through a bunch of things that happen in India. So there's a couple of killings. There's a lady called Gauri Lankesh who's murdered. She's shot in front of her house because she was critical of right-wing Hinduism and she opposed the caste system, which is laying the land for later on, and then the ramping up of the violence and the intimidation of students. There's a farmer called Pelu Khan who is lynched for buying dairy cattle. Yeah, but he has this license and he says they're dairy cattle, but as Hindus revere cows and cattle, they lynch.
They killed them on a train, I believe, according to the newspaper article that pops up on screen very briefly. And it then talks about, there's a flash up of Trump wins in the US, then another flash up of Indian journalist killed, then another flash up of intercaste marriage leads to honor killing.
Yes.
So that, it's quite striking stuff. And there's some talk of, students, while not being raped, but they're constantly being threatened with it from people of a differing background.
Yeah, well, it got me into, because it mentions a guy's suicide, Rohit Vemula, and he's from the lowest caste. And obviously, from watching this documentary, we're two ignorant Irish dudes who have no concept of Indian cultural and social and historical anything. But I've been to Mumbai, and I've worked with a lot of Indian people, and I've taught a lot of Indian students. But I knew of the caste system, and I knew there was the untouchables, that's as they call it, the Dalits. And I looked into it there today just to kind of educate myself a little bit better, because I didn't want to come across as an ignoramus here in this, but I probably will anyway. But I didn't actually know, like, there's 3,000 castes and 25,000 subcastes, each related to a specific occupation.
It's far too complicated.
It's crazy. And so the government actually don't call them Dalits, they call them scheduled castes to make it a bit more, I don't know, political or formal, I guess. But it's the Dalits, and I believe gives us then foundation for Elle, because she is a Dalit, and she is in love with, she has her lover that she's writing these letters to, and pretty much after this sort of roll call of terrible things that happened, she mentions that a year has passed by and he has not got back in touch.
She's starting to lose hope. She's getting a bit angry at this point that her BF has abandoned her, and he's not fighting his parents to come visit or even respond. And then she goes on to say that, did you ever love me? Did you ever understand me? Or were you just pretending? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And like, that was interesting to delve into a bit, like, regarding the caste system. Like, universities and colleges bring people together, and then when you leave, you're back to your family and you're back to the old traditional ways of living. And obviously older generations have these historic sort of things that they want to keep a hold of. I was looking up the caste system as well, and I don't want to turn this into a history lesson or whatever, but I find it interesting because we're Irish, and one thing I read was that the role of British colonialism actually helped evolve and helped entrench the caste system. It existed before that, but because they love to take censuses of their populations and of their minions, one of them was to reveal your caste in it, and it was a lot of
like my understanding of the caste system and colonial rule from the UK was that it was an excellent mechanism in controlling the masses.
Yeah,
because if they already think that there's levels, and people below at X level have no real say in the political landscape of your country, then you can discount 99% of the people, and everything they say is stupid. So go away and go work on the farm and shut up.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like colonialism.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. But
no. But it's interesting because it's very much tied in, like when they brought in, obviously, the British form of education, and higher castes had better access to English education. And I was reading today that Dalits, I'm generalizing here, but like 80% of them don't have access to any form of education in India.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I dug up as well. And that is the crux of, that's the main complaint, I believe, from all of this, that education is not universal.
Yeah.
And then as this goes on, that they're trying to defund schools that are subsidized now, so that education becomes harder for Dalits and middle caste people to get access to, which is, a reason to complain, I would say.
Yeah, kind of. It when she mentions that about him not contacting her, it is a year has passed by, it says, and Diwali, the celebration of Diwali, it's the Festival of Lights. From living in Singapore, we always got a holiday for Diwali, which was great. Nice. So it's Festival of Lights, good over evil. But it goes into New Delhi then, and there's a lot of protests going on, and there's what somebody says, child of a janitor and a child of a minister should be able to go to the same school. So that's very much just anti-casteism, or casteism. What is it? What's it? Anti-caste? I don't know. Casteism.
Casteist and casteism, and it's
it's interesting that I found it very interesting. I don't know about you. I found it very interesting that the people that were protesting against the caste system had hammer and sickle flags, and
there was mention of Lenin several times.
Quoted Lenin, and it's one of the guys that are speaking says, and Lenin tells us blah 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 blah. So it's like, okay, are you jumping from one fire into the other? But I don't know.
The way I took that is, I know many a student would have had a picture of Che Guevara up on the wall because they're all,
yeah.
I'm cool now. I'm a student. I do rebellious things.
He shows up in one of the protests. Did you see him?
I did, and I wrote that down as something to note. I think for a second I was like, "What? How did Che Guevara get there?" Oh wait, no, it's just some Indian guy. He looks very much like Che Guevara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of the midpoint.
It's midpoint.
Yeah, now things kick off at this point.
Yeah, but you know what I liked about this section, because this is a time where I was actually interested in it, and then the last third kind of dropped off again. But the one thing I found interesting about this one was her narrating when it was showing the female police women at the riot, and it was kind of showing close ups of their face, and she was like narrating over it. You will go home to your families tonight. You will feed your children. It was very humanizing of obviously the establishment, and obviously Elle and all the students are anti-establishment, for one of a better word.
It was a very interesting choice as well, because she mostly focused on one lady's face, and that lady looked incredibly uncomfortable, sad even, because I believe she knew what was coming, and she knew what she was about to have to do. So this is kind of why it was easier to humanize that individual, because she was about to, let's call it, she's going to oppress a bunch of people with a stick.
Yeah. Sorry to laugh at that, but the way you put it.
Yeah. But it's important to note that she didn't demonize the cops either in this. She sees them as people as well. And she wonders what they're thinking of them. But then she also says, but I must not feel too sad for you because you're about to pick up your stick and hit my friends.
Yeah. It was an interesting part, and probably the most memorable part of the documentary, because as we said, there's a lot of abstract visuals in between these things, and a lot of sort of static noise or blowing of the wind or something. It's a little
arty.
It's very arty, and it's definitely like, I was reminded of a lot of modern art galleries I've gone to, and there's videos being played, and it's just like random noises and visuals that don't make any sense whatsoever, but are supposed to be giving you some sort of message. Maybe we're not intellectual enough.
That's probably it.
Yeah. I think one of the things then that happens, and this is kind of nearing the end of the documentary, kind of, is where these masked goons,
100 plus lads come mobbing into several colleges, and they bring some beatdown for everybody they deem to be anti-national or anti-Indian, Muslim or Dalits. They go rampant. And there's two particular scenes in this, or two particular videos that they show. The first one of note is in a corridor.
Yeah.
Obviously within a college, and a girl is filming a host of masked men coming in with sticks, sledgehammers, and normal hammers, and they're beating up people as they run in. They're smashing stuff, and near the end of this video, you see one particular guy. He obviously makes eye contact with the girl with the camera. He raises the stick and charges at her. And the last part of that scene is the stick coming down and the camera going dead, which is kind of horrifying, like scary stuff.
Yeah, I think that was scary, and then it leads into it even so much scarier video.
The barricade.
Yeah.
the scariest, like, while the barricade scheme is terrifying because there's a bunch of students, it's just kids, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Kids in a room, they've put up a bunch of school tables.
And these are like official police, though, I think.
These
they're
are
not
police.
masked.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
They are masked because they're wearing riot gear.
Yeah.
Oh, they've got truncheons, and these truncheons are serious pieces of kit. They're metal sticks. And I don't know how long, like 4 foot long. Like you get a whack with this, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kick the door in, smash it in, they kick the tables out of the way, then they instruct the students to leave. But as the students are leaving, and there's no violence from the students in this scene.
No.
They're just beating the living lard out of these poor guys for no reason other than maybe they're not moving quick enough. I'm not sure. But it's terrifying, and it's terrifying because it's government-sanctioned beatings.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, we can't beat you with brains, we'll beat you with sticks instead.
Yeah, and that to me is the most memorable thing in the whole documentary.
I
just
think so.
That scene, that 5 minutes.
It's freaky. And especially, actually, you think you don't even know what's going on at the start, and then all these students just come out of the darkness.
Yeah, like
rushed out.
Tens of them. There must be about 50 guys.
Yeah.
But then the bottleneck up at the door. But as they're trying to get through, there's riot police on the other side, and as they go through the door, they get hit.
Yeah.
So people then at the door don't want to go through the door, but the people at the back of the queue of students are getting hit.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And then near the end, one of the goons, policemen, knocks the security camera off the ceiling.
After late at that time, he didn't get the tape.
Didn't get it. Yeah, exactly. Didn't get it whacked in time with your whack stick. So yeah, that sort of like is the crescendo of sort of, obviously there's a lot of backstory to this,
yes.
to what's going on in this movie. But I think that's the most visual and sort of tangible evidence of what the students have experienced over the period of this documentary.
Yeah, and I think, like, it, as you said earlier, it tapers off after this moment because that is the crescendo. It is, you don't go higher than that. So it was right to be left to near the end.
Yeah,
it tapers off, and then the next couple of scenes are a bit artsy, but then it goes off to a conversation the lads are having in the FTII, the student union, I'm assuming.
I don't know. It sounded very official, and I was weirded out by this because it starts off with the FTII being the kind of the what's the word, the touch paper. What do you call that when it's the kindling for what happens, and then there's an FTIA speech. Well, maybe it is a student union, but I thought it was like an academic lead or something.
It could be. It
was weird because
he was an older guy who was speaking. But he was surrounded by students.
It just felt like, oh, well, you're with them now, so that maybe they hired the right person this time or something.
Well, in the faculty's defense, they also got reported as getting a good hiding as well. So,
you know what the ironic thing he says in the speech?
Is that either you're with us or you don't exist? Or
no, no.
Okay.
Seen as the entire movie is in black and white, he says we should not be thinking in black and white.
Yeah.
I kind of went, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. That's
maybe he's telling the director of the movie to put some color in.
There is a couple of splashes of color during the movie.
It's like Diwali and
something else.
Yeah, I can't really think what it was now. Purposefully done, almost like Schindler's List, but not nearly as impactful with the girl with the red dress.
Nowhere near it. That's it.
Yeah, that's the end of the movie. Finn.
Yeah, or whatever the Hindu word for Finn is. So, what do you think about the topic? What would you give it out of 5? The actual topic and I guess you can save the sort of production values for the production section of reviewing.
The topic is a difficult one to score.
It is
because I think it's a very important topic. I think what the message is it should be known and it should be made public and people should be aware of this type of oppression. Unfortunately, how it's delivered via the story of Elle doesn't hit home.
No.
And maybe it's because I'm without context from a political standpoint, from a cultural standpoint. But I found it hard to care as much as I should.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's very much diluted. The topic is diluted by the artsiness of the visuals.
Yes, absolutely.
The most powerful moments of the film are when it's real footage and real narration and real life interviews.
And to that, I only give it 2.
Correct. That's the correct answer.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you approve of my rating. Because, if you throw away the L stuff and you focus directly on stuff, I'd be looking at a 4 because it's, it could be powerful stuff. L, dilutes it, as you said.
I think that I don't think they had delusions of grandeur of launching this internationally. Well, there is hard-coded English subtitles in it, but I think if you want to get more international acclaim and international recognition, obviously it needs to be a bit more backstory for us ignorants that's from different countries that need a bit more.
The way I see this movie is it's more of a kind of like a self-indulgent sort of home project than that's something that they wanted to be published to the global scene. They didn't care where it went.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I think it should go. This story needs to be kind of told type thing, and this isn't the vehicle for doing it.
Yeah. So that's fine. What about? So this is hard too because the people section. This was easier done in Summer of Soul.
There's no people.
There are no people. So obviously there are people that are named in the narration, but they don't really play a huge part.
They're more like headlines in a newspaper. There's no depth. There's no interviewing with them. There are a few people giving very short speeches or segments of speeches, so it's very hard to give anything of value to that. So I'm going to rate this as a 1.
I'm a 1 too. Let's talk about the sound brackets track. Like it's again like the visual. It's very artsy, very very atmospheric. But then like it's organic at times. It's ethereal at times. There's static sounds. There's a part of the movie where they're speaking French over computer game sounds, and then it goes it goes into a blues guitar. And I specifically remember that segment of audio, and it's just like, come on. And then at the end of the movie, it ends on a synthetic sort of upbeat sort of style. And again, it just reminded me of modern art, and it didn't hit the right tone for me. I gave it 1 out of 5.
I was a little bit more generous because some of the sounds over some of the more hard to watch scenes kind of made you anxious at the same time. So but still. Not great.
Yeah. So what did you do? 1.5 or 2?
1.5.
Yeah. So finishing off with the production, obviously this is where we probably have a lot of criticisms about. Obviously everything is in black and white. It's very grainy. It's hard to make out sometimes what you're looking at. It's very abstract at times, which makes it harder to engage with the content. It's too dark at times to render anything meaningful. The half hour at the start is really slow, and some things that they mentioned that Elle, they put up a narration where it goes, sometimes in Elle's diary she drew doodles in the margins, and then it has a bunch of hand doodles that don't make any sense or any relevance to anything as well. There's minutes and there's tons of dark grainy B-roll. But I get it somehow that it paints the bleakness of the situation in times.
And it tries to give the impression that it's filmed on like a 16mm film or something like that.
Might be.
It's all done digitally. So this is a fake impression that they're trying to portray. And there's also scenes intentionally left blank for about 30 seconds in between interesting pieces, which is something that they've done for production value of it, but it detracts substantially from it. Production wasn't great. I give it 0.5.
Dang. Well, I gave it 1.5, and just because I kind of it left me with a couple of questions, because at the end, again, it ends on grainy dancing, and the whole documentary starts off with grainy dancing. So it kind of like, it made me think about the whole context of the movie and the meaning behind it. You know, what has changed? You know, are we back to the beginning of students enjoying themselves, and then something will happen and they will revolt again because the establishment are making rules up that go against their freedoms? So it's like, wipe the slate, back to year one again. It kind of just, the last few seconds, I sort of tried to make that connection, and maybe they were going for that, maybe they weren't, maybe they're just going to slap another party scene in at the end, but that gave me some questions, and I'm guessing that the reality is, yes, it is back to the beginning, and this will just happen constantly, because the students will not have any voice.
It's always the way, though.
Yeah. So that's it for a night of knowing nothing. We know nothing about Indian culture.
Clearly, and because I gave it a 0.5 in production, I know nothing about arty films or filmography.
Yeah, but it just sort of reminded me of a lot of abstract art videos that I've seen many of them over the years. And just before we move off, just to give a couple of reviews here. Chicago Tribune, Michael Phillips gave the movie 100 out of 100. The movie expresses so much so delicately about precarious young hearts, the storm clouds of nationalist politics, and most of all, the possibility and necessity of artistic freedom. Maybe the movie is an example of artistic freedom.
Possibly.
The Globe and Mail gave it 75 out of 100. Aparita Bandari is the author, and she says, right from its opening frame, there's a lyrical, dreamlike quality to Payal Kabadia's debut feature. And that's not very descriptive or conclusive of whether they like it or not, but that's the headline to the review. So we don't have any movie to pick, because we will be recapping our first 10 episodes in the next episode, which will come out a day after this. And that's a nice surprise for us all.
God, surprise for me too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's the end of episode 10. We will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.